Hello, this is Dr. Paul Cottrell, and I'm going to be going over some more news about the war. This is November 1st, so this is the November 1st recording in the morning. So I'm recording this at about 9:30 or so, New York time. All right, so what I want to do is I want to go over, might as well call my show PNN, Paul News Network. Right, so all right, so what I want to do is I want to play a Fox News post, right? That's dealing with Israel, Israel killing a commander, Hamas commander. So let's listen to that first.
Fox News alerted Israel continued to target Hamas hotspots in Gaza, but the ground fighting comes with a heavy toll.
The IDF confirming that 10 of the soldiers were killed last night while fighting in northern Gaza. That brings the Israeli soldier death toll now to 12.
All right, and right now, foreign nationals have been granted access to leave Gaza. This is great news. Through the Rafah Gate crossing over in Egypt. That's right. There are about 400 people waiting to get out. Trey Yates is live in southern Israel with the latest, where it is 12 noon. Trey, good afternoon to you.
Yeah, hey guys, good morning. I do want to start with those numbers from the Israeli military. They've confirmed an additional 10 of their soldiers were killed in battles with Hamas inside Gaza. That adds to the 2 they announced yesterday from a reconnaissance unit that were killed in similar battles. It really gives you a sense of what they are facing inside Gaza. In terms of the breakdown, these soldiers, some of them were killed by an RPG that was fired by Hamas militants. Others were killed by an anti-tank guided missile that was fired at an armored vehicle inside the strip. And so just...
That's interesting because last week, it's trading time. That was interesting because the video I did last night, I was saying, imagine yourself, I was showing a picture, imagine yourself being one of these soldiers walking down these alleys and getting hit by snipers. You know, I was thinking the infantrymen getting picked off by sniper fire, but really what it is that they're targeting larger assets. All right, probably because they don't want to target the infantrymen because it would reveal their position potentially. And which one's better, knocking out a soldier in the alley or down the street, or trying to knock out larger assets like tanks, right? So this is the problem, you know, with urban warfare. The same thing that we saw in Fallujah, you know, with the SEAL teams trying to clear it out, and they were having a lot of problems. This is going to be extremely deadly for the Israeli forces, the IDF, and this is the reason why carpet bombing and totally destroying the city is the best means, even though it's the most expensive and has the most casualties, the most collateral damage. Surgical, this is why people aren't paying attention. The unconventional warfare that was designed with biologics is exactly for this purpose. I don't think they've used it yet. Some people think they are using it. I don't believe that for a second that they're using it yet.
Inside the strip. And so despite the thousands of soldiers that are participating in this ground portion of the operation to destroy Hamas, it is a very dangerous battlefield for those soldiers. And the Israelis say they are preparing for more difficult days of battle ahead. I do want to shift to the Jabalia refugee camp in the northern part of the strip. This was considered a Hamas stronghold and a place where the Israelis were facing fierce resistance. They say in a strike yesterday, they killed Ibrahim Baari, the commander for the entire Jabalia battalion. This is a man they were seeking to kill as part of one of the people that not only participated in the planning for the October 7th massacre, but also that was leading the Hamas fighters in Gaza to kill more Israeli soldiers. I will say there are new questions from the Israeli military, to the Israeli military rather, about the civilian casualties surrounding this camp. Questions about how many civilian.
That crater size was a pretty powerful bomb or missile or whatever they used to make that crater. I mean, it was pretty powerful. And I don't know how smart these bunker busters are. And they haven't been dropping a lot of these bunker busters, right? And they're dropping things that are a little bit smaller. Was it that they're learning to use the bomb, in terms of targeting? Because this is a heavier type of munition. Was there tunnels underneath the building and it caved in? I mean, that crater's pretty big. So, I mean, it was pretty extensive.
Questions about how many civilians were there and how many they knew would be killed as a result of this strike. Additionally, though, you talk about the Rafah crossing between Gaza and Egypt. Some good news today amid this horrific story. Already we are seeing images of ambulances taking injured Palestinians out to go to Egyptian hospitals. And the Egyptians say 500 foreign nationals will be allowed out of Gaza today as part of this deal that was negotiated by Qatar. Guys?
So who is actually screening them, Trey?
So remember what I was saying with Franchi, that did the lecture over at the Harvard Club the other day that I did a video on, and he was saying that they were negotiating Qatar was negotiating for the hostages. This is exactly what he was saying. He was right. And that was, I don't know how many days ago that was. I mean, that was last week. I think it was Thursday of last week.
It's actually screening them, Trey. Did they get that far? Because the big worry is Hamas gets out, or the hostages come out with people with Hamas, and they end up scurrying throughout the Middle East. Do they have a process of screening?
They did such a jackass. Only 500 people are leaving. All right. I'm sure Hamas is a lot bigger than 500. All right. Like a lot bigger. So what, maybe one or two? You're talking about, one or two that might be able to sneak out of the 500. And a lot of them are casualties, right? A lot of them need hospitalization. And some of them are for foreign nationals. So I don't think that's a big issue.
That's the screening.
So we understand the list is being reviewed by the Israelis, and it's also being reviewed by Egyptian intelligence officials.
Okay.
It is a great question in all of this, because there will certainly be people trying to get out of Gaza from the leadership of Hamas. But it's important to distinguish between the Hamas leadership that will try to flee likely in the coming days and weeks, and also the civilians that have to get out, including the American citizens. We should note here, though, there are some Americans still in Gaza who will not get out today. I've been talking with one woman, and I just want to play you a few seconds of a voice note she sent me 8 minutes ago. And she says this.
American passport, and his name went through today to leave Gaza with the Jordanian passport, and he's 10 years old without me.
Okay, so what that woman there is saying, her son has an American and a Jordanian passport. She has an American passport. She is a Palestinian American. She lives in Utah. And she says that the list today included her son's name, a 10-year-old, but not her name. And so that just illustrates further the complexities of what's taking place. People aren't going to leave or allow their children to leave without them joining them. And so it's an incredibly challenging situation on the ground. But she is very frustrated about what's taking place. And she says there's been a lack of communication from the State Department about when to go to the border and when she'll actually be able to make it home to the United States.
Trey, is there anyone from the State Department?
I think that there's, I need to expound on this a little bit and also show my wisdom in this compared to other people that are covering this news. When you care about your country, and it doesn't matter what country you belong to, right? I'm just speaking in generic terms, and it is under attack, you will defend it. All right. If you are a Gazan, right? If you're a Palestinian and you really care about your country, why don't you fight for it? Why are you running away? This is a problem, you know, like for example, and we can take this many different directions. Hamas was allowed to dig into Gaza. Why didn't the Palestinians in Gaza fight Hamas to prevent that from happening? Even though they may have taken casualties, they may have died. Actually, them doing that and having a civil war and fighting Hamas would have caused less damage, less economic destruction, less death than the Israelis having to turn Gaza into a parking lot. Once again, proof positive, if you don't get the job done early on, then it's going to get worse later. Then let's take the track, all right, where if you care about your nation, and supposedly the Palestinians cares about their nation so much, and they, you know, think that the Israelis are so bad, then why aren't the Palestinians actually taking arms and siding with Hamas to fight Israel? Now, some are probably, but why are a lot of people trying to escape? Because they don't really want to fight for their country. If you saw a mass invasion, like what we saw in October 7th happening to, let's say, Texas, right? And people were, you know, ranchers, you know, had their homes invaded and their families killed and, you know, the babies burnt, right? People's heads chopped off and all this. Do you think that the Texans would say, help us evacuate so we can go to Utah? No, the Texans would actually lock and load and start killing. Here's the problem. You got society, which is so permeated with liberalism and this the country, the government has to help me mentality, and they're not willing to fight for anything. They're not willing to stand their ground. This is a classic example. If they really want their country, fight for it. But instead, what they're doing is they're running away. And you see it even in America. You see it in the United States and how people are. It happened in the last crisis. Instead of doing what I said, doing D-Day, meaning just live your life, go through it, don't worry about it. You know, people are going to get harmed, short-term and long-term, through the V and through, you know, the pathogen and, you know, through treatment, but just push through. And that a future generation is going to benefit from your self-sacrifice. And you may be harmed and you may not. But the societal self-sacrifice is passing on to another generation, just like what the ones that hit Normandy did. But people don't want to do that because people are selfish. People are selfish. People don't want to fight for the country. People don't want to do the good, you know, for nationhood or for the society. And that's why we're in the situation we're in. That's part of the reason why the divineness of this whole event that's taking place is punishing people in the way we all are. We failed miserably as a species, absolutely miserably. If you love your country, you fight for it.
From the State Department on the ground.
And let me take it one step further. A lot of people on social media saying, "Oh, don't take this, take that, take that." You know, during the last crisis, right? Being generic, because I want this video to stay up. What did they do to make sure that the manufacturing capability of the unconventional warfare and biologics ceased. Nothing. Tens of millions of people whining and didn't do anything. Didn't take the advice of people that have superior intelligence, compared to the rest of the population. They didn't do anything. They didn't listen. And you know what? Tough. There's actually a study that just came out of India that proves exactly what I said 4 years ago what was going to happen. Just came out.
State Department on the ground helping navigate this? I know we have a U.S. general's 3-star helping with some of the military operation, but from a U.S. interest standpoint, is there anyone from the State Department there to navigate it?
So there are people in Israel, but not in Gaza. And this is an important note because yesterday you heard the Biden administration sort of touting this idea that they've been talking with aid organizations inside Gaza to get more information about the Americans that are trapped there. The reality on the ground is that they have no one inside Gaza. There are American citizens that we've talked to over the past week that say they are running low on food and clean water. And many people, including the woman that I just played her voice message, she says she's been told by the State Department to go to the Rafah crossing multiple times over the past several weeks. She's gotten there, risked her life to go amid this active war zone, only to be turned around. And so this is a critical part of the story. And despite the fact that 500 foreign nationals are likely to leave Gaza today as part of this Qatari.
And the reason why that is happening is because they only have a limited amount of people that they can evacuate. And if they don't get there early enough time, if you're not early in the queue, you're going to miss your window and you have to come back. That happens all the time for evacuation.
Today as part of this Qatari and Egyptian deal. It's not all of them, and there will still be American citizens trapped inside Gaza at the end of the day today.
And they're ready to go.
Trey, we couldn't take some sort of a ship or use, we have ships there. Could we not pick up these Americans that are there in the Gaza Strip area using the Mediterranean Sea?
This is another example of the failure of globalization. This is another example of that globalization is going to make the world such a more peaceful and better place, and that there is no such thing as a citizen. You're a global citizen. You're a transnational capitalist, or you're a vagabond, right? Localization is where the world is moving towards, not globalization. And where should you stay depends on what country you are affiliated with. And I don't believe in the concept of a dual citizen. I think that you should be one or the other. I don't believe in dual citizenship. And a lot of Jewish people have dual citizenship between the United States and Israel. I just don't believe it. I just, which country do you have the most affiliation to, and that you support that country?
See?
That's a really great question, and it's actually being discussed not only by the U.S. government, but also by some of the private organizations we've been talking to. You might remember back during the war in Ukraine that is still ongoing right now, but the early days of that conflict, you had all of these Americans, often veterans, that would go and try to rescue people from the war zone. Those conversations are taking place now as the clock ticks on, and people are still trapped inside Gaza. So that is one possibility that's being floated. There are also European governments, including the French and the Germans, that have talked about using aid ships to basically take injured Palestinians out through the Mediterranean Sea to places like Egypt and get them care that they much need.
And it looks like they're just waiting for them to open the gates and away they go. Trey, thank you very much for the great report from Israel.
Hey, Trey, can I just ask you one quick question about the hostages?
Is it true that American commanders are on the ground helping locate the 200 plus hostages, many of which are Americans? The New York Times has that story. Some others are running with it. What do you hear?
I want to be really careful with this question only because we have some agreements with our sources about what's taking place, but I can tell you there is a broad effort on the ground to try and get those hostages, especially the American citizens, out. And if I could just for a moment describe a conversation I just had about an hour ago. My team and I went to an area to interview the family members of two people that are being held hostage inside Gaza. And they say they are so worried that the hostages will be forgotten about. And this mother was talking about her son, and you could just see in her eyes the fear that her son will be forgotten. And so it's an important question, and one we should remember. There are still 240 people being held by Hamas inside.
I understand the mother's concern about her child. That's just motherly instinct. But this event is far bigger than her child. The hostages should not be a determining factor on what the Israelis, the IDF, the overall war plan should be and how to execute it. You might as well assume that the hostages are already sacrificed in this operation, in this war. If you can get them out, great, that's a bonus. But they should not be a determining factor. And this is this is exactly what the terrorists want. For a bunch of liberals that want to just save life and not kill it, right? Kill off the problem. They just, we have a military that just went, how many lives can we save? So we can have another medal on our uniform. How many lives can we save and not win a war, not get the job done, be able to, take American taxpayer money decade after decade after decade and still, go to Congress and say, we need more appropriations so we can, defend America. And they can't win a fucking war. Forget about the hostages. Fucking kill the enemy.
Being held by Hamas inside Gaza.
Yeah, the number only seems to grow. Trey, thanks.
They're using the hostages to try to slow down the operations. Mark my words on that. Another ultra-liberal bullshit move. All right, this is France 24. I like actually France 24 in many regards. This one is about the strategic challenge and will ground invasions succeed against Hamas?
Hello and welcome to Middle East Matters on France 24. I'm Nadia Massey. In the show this week, as Israel's ground war gets underway in Gaza, we look back at previous military operations in the enclave. Did they achieve their aims, and at what human cost? And with the death toll in Gaza soaring, we'll ask what victory might look like in this conflict. Can Hamas truly be defeated? Welcome to the programme. This week, the Israeli bombardment of Gaza is intensifying and the ground war has begun as well. The stated aim by Israel is to destroy Hamas in response to the October 7th attacks on Israeli communities. However, this is, of course, not the first time Israel has fought a bloody war in Gaza in an attempt to quash the militant group. So, what happened in those previous battles, and might any lessons be learned? This first report by France 24's Leo McGuinn.
Now, again, I haven't seen this video, so we're doing this, off the cuff, right? The Israelis did not go all the way, and there's the problem. If we did half-hearted moves, let's say in Dresden, you really think that we would have been able to plow through Germany like we did? Of course not. This is the problem. We got a bunch of generals and the UN and politicians that are afraid of the news and how it may hurt their political, scheme of things.
It's been 18 years since the Israeli withdrawal from the Gaza Strip. Since then, its army has only undertaken 3 large-scale military operations into the region. Such ops are rare because the cost of sending ground troops into Gaza is high. In 2006, Israel launched Operation Summer Rains in response to the kidnapping of soldier Gilad Shalit, who had been taken hostage by a Palestinian commando. For the first time, the Israeli army launched a military strategy that would be repeated many times over the years. First, Gaza was bombed en masse before almost 3,000 soldiers were deployed into the region. The operation lasted 5 months. Dozens of Hamas officials were arrested, with the Israeli army suffering very few casualties. But strategically, it was a failure. Shalit was not released and would not be until 5 years later, in exchange for 1,000 Hamas fighters. The second operation began in December 2008. Israel.
You see a pattern with Hamas. You know, they love taking the hostages.
In 2008, Israel launched what would become known as the First Gaza War. The aim this time was to put an end to rocket fire and, above all, to destroy the hundreds of tunnels between the enclave and the Egyptian Sinai Peninsula through which arms were transported. For Israel, the modus operandi remained the same. Gaza was bombed en masse before troops entered the enclave on the 3rd of January 2009. 15 days of particularly deadly fighting followed, although Israel claimed to have lost only 10 soldiers. 700 Hamas fighters were killed, as well as almost 900 Palestinian civilians. Many of the tunnels were destroyed, but the Israeli image was damaged publicly.
So 2006, casualties on both sides, not as great. 2008, casualties climbing. Again, we are doing this together. I have not seen this video, but it just proves my point that I've been saying on about 5 different videos. If you don't get the job done, it's going to get worse and more people are going to die. And this is going to go unconventional, either radiological, chemical, biological, or all 3. And it's going to become a larger war. And because now the problems that we have with China and with what's going on in Ukraine and Russia, this is going to be a 3-front war. And we don't even have the oil to be able to sustain a war because we have a stupid president that actually released it to try to bring down the gas price. But, it just so happened that on the futures market, they sold those barrels of oil to China. We have politicians that are fucking absolutely fucking stupid and they don't care about you. I am almost never wrong. Almost. On really, 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 really big things. And I'm telling you, if this doesn't get solved now, the whole fucking world is going to be up in flames.
Image was damaged publicly because of the collateral victims. Finally, in 2014, after the murder of 3 Israeli teenagers, the IDF launched Protective Edge. But this time, Hamas was ready for a confrontation. Israel once again used its air force before sending in its troops. IDF soldiers were forced to operate in densely populated areas and minefields where they were regularly attacked by Hamas units. After 2 months of operations, there was a heavy death toll. 73 dead on the Israeli side, including 67 soldiers. And according to the UN, over 2,000 Palestinians were killed. 3 operations, but none really.
See? Casualties are starting to tick up for each one of these operations. You know, everybody kept on saying, we need peace. We need peace. Peace ain't going to solve this problem. It's not going to solve this problem.
Operations, but none really decisive against Hamas. This time, Israel says it's determined to destroy the organization, even though it's holding many hostages.
Well, listening to that report was Bilal Saab. He's the director of the Defense and Security Program at the Middle East Institute in Washington, D.C. He joins us on the program from there.
Before, these fashionable individuals on the show start speaking, casualties started to tick up. Mowing the lawn only helped a little bit into bringing down hostilities for a short amount of time. So the strategy failed, but you also have that component that you have the UN and the United States getting involved in tying the hands of Israel from actually getting the job done. Get the job done and stop worrying about the humanitarian side of this, because it's gonna get worse. More civilians are gonna die if you don't get the job done. This is exactly the same analogy to cancer. You get the cancer out early and the patient fares a lot better. But if it starts to spread, if it starts to affect other organ systems, it's a lot harder to treat. And the patient may die. This is the same thing. Our society may die because we're not doing the right thing. And we keep on thinking, oh, let's try to save patients. All right, let's try to save civilians in this situation. Sometimes the death and destruction short term is actually a lower cost of human suffering compared to kicking the can down the road and this thing getting worse. That's not always the case, but in this case it is, right? The US tying the hands behind Israel's back is a big part of why this is happening. A big part. And this is another reason why the United States is being tested to see if we're going to do the right thing now. We're all complicit. We're all at fault. Everyone listening, the crisis that's going on in the world today, we're at fault, all of us. Not to the same degree, but we're all at fault. And some of us will get a blessing, and some of us are going to get a curse, depending on where you stand on supporting certain sides and where you stand on trying to solve the problem. It's the same thing. Did we shut down the BSL labs? No. Did DrPaulCottrell say so in 2020? Yes. Is the world moving towards absolute destruction? Yes. Risk for unconventional warfare, especially with biologics increasing? Yes. See? It's a very simple idea. Solve the problem before it becomes a bigger problem.
That's on the program from there. Thanks for joining us on France 24/7.
Happy to do this with you. Thank you.
As we saw in that report, Israel tried to destroy Hamas in the 2008 war, in the 2014 war. Israel didn't succeed then. Arguably, actually, Hamas got stronger after those conflicts. So militarily, can Israel succeed this time, do you think?
I'm glad you mentioned the word and the caveat militarily, because that's always possible. The question has always been.
Breaking news here. U.S. October ISM manufacturing index is lower than estimate of 59. 50 is kind of expansionary. Anything below that is contractionary. But the problem is that it was lower than estimates, so 46 to 49. That's not a good sign. That's a sign that there's a crack in the system in the U.S. economy.
That's always possible. The question has always been, what is the military risk that Israel is willing to
accept to its soldiers, and what is the political price it's also willing to tolerate. Militarily speaking, Israel has the capacity to massively degrade the organization, perhaps even disarm it. But when you talk about strategic victory, when you're talking about uprooting, when you're talking about wiping out, destroying, annihilating things that the Israeli government has declared since the beginning of this war, that becomes almost like a mission impossible.
Well, indeed, as you're suggesting there, we know that there is a real asymmetry between the Israeli army and Hamas militarily. The IDF, obviously one of the strongest militaries in the world, but that doesn't necessarily mean this will be a straightforward campaign for Israel. I want to talk to you about that in a bit more detail in just a moment. But first, France 24's James Messina crunches some of the numbers for us.
The stories in the Bible, especially in Numbers, where God said, go and do something, and the Israelis were worried because it seemed impossible, and they didn't do it. They got cursed, right? And some of these individuals ended up getting expelled from the camp or killed, murdered. There are others that followed along, right? There were others that followed the commandment to, take some land and not to be fearful, and they succeeded. And there was and these were things that seemed to be absolutely impossible. I'm telling you, when there are certain events that have a divine presence in it, and you have to just keep on moving forward, and you don't live in fear. The other side, the serpent, or the different societies will use different terminology. The serpent, or Satan, or the great prosecutor, they live on fear. But if you aren't fearful, they lose control of you. So we have a big part of the society. They're fearful of the hostages, the life of the hostages. Okay, I mean, it's understandable. But that fear is a opening door for the serpent. That fear slows down your ability to take over the negative, to control the negative. So it's gaining power if you fear something. When you don't fear it, it loses power on you. So, and the serpent uses, it's cunning. It's very cunning, and it's very, it's not so obvious, right? And we may hear people that are super smart, or that have a well-polished thesis of a particular policy, right? But if there is an element of fear to prevent you from solving the problem, then it is a mechanism, it is a tool that the serpent is using. Okay? And I think people understand what I'm saying, but the serpent, or the great prosecutor, they will try to get the society in a fear mode. All right. And individuals that take hold of that fear, right, and they allow it to seep in, they'll lose control over the great prosecutor. The great prosecutor can only take hold if there's fear. This is part of the reason why there's so much fear in the news, so much fear in social media. The great prosecutor, the serpent, Satan, whatever term you want to use, this great prosecutor is gaining strength from that fear. When there is no fear and you just have 100% faith in God, it loses. Because you got to remember, the great serpent has to work in the domain of the Torah. All right? It can't break the commandments. It's not allowed to. It has to work within it has to work within that theoretical foundation of the Bible. All right? But it knows that people can do things to break the commandments, and it can nudge you to break something. And a big part of that is through fear. So when you feel fearful, break that connection and just put strength in the positive, into God. All right. You know, different societies have different terms for this, but you know, put faith in a heavenly power, a divine power, and you will not have fear anymore. And so once you have that, you can do the impossible, because there is a divine spark that can expand either in knowledge or in strength or in, you know, the ability to, you know, protect your society. There is an expansion that takes place out of that. There's an infinite number of energy above us, above our world. But when it trickles down in sparks, it is restricted, right? I think the term is Simpson. I think the term is Simpson. But the thing is that this infinite energy, all right, and infinite knowledge gets constricted to allow for it to drip down to here and then be able to expand. And all it takes is just one spark and expand, and a whole universe can be created. All right. So that tells you how massive the energy field above us in this world that is above the constriction happens. All right. I know I'm talking very metaphysical and very lofty, right? But the point I'm making is that the spark doesn't fall down to our world if we're fearful. And so Israel all it has to do is just go in. It will succeed. There's no doubt in my mind they will succeed. If they just said, you know, the United States, we're going to play hardball in your politics, and you're going to give us the fucking, you know, military support and armaments that we need. We'll pay for it and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, you just keep on shoveling the armaments to us, and we will get the job done. The problem comes in is when the United States and the international community go, that's too much, Netanyahu. That's just way too much. You can't, that's too much carnage. That's when the fear starts to trickle in. We're fearful that there's going to be too many casualties. We're fearful of the hostages, the safety of the hostages. We're fearful that this might turn into a more regional war. Because you got to remember, if you're doing something that is moving the ball forward towards the building of the Temple Mount, then there's a blessing to the whole world. And the ones that are fighting against that are going to get a curse. Yeah, people don't understand that whole Temple Mount is a machine. It's a machine. And it works in such a way that once it gets booted up, that there are divine energies that come down. You know, the super rationalists are going to say, no, that can't be. No. Don't live in fear.
Now, crunches some of the numbers for us.
It counts 170,000 personnel, of which 126,000 are soldiers. And Israel also has at its disposal 400,000 reservists. Almost all of them have been mobilized since Hamas's attack on the 7th of October. 360,000
That's 4% of the population. The state allocates over $25 billion a year on defense. That's the 15th biggest budget in the world. Among other things, it allows them to maintain 1,300 tanks and armored vehicles, 345 fighter planes, as well as drones, submarines, and its famed Iron Dome defensive system, which is considered one of the most effective on the planet. Yet Hamas's attack has brought to light a number of flaws. So many rockets being fired at the same time, the
Iron Dome is kind of like, even though it is effective, but it can get overrun. But it's kind of it's the very rudimentary system. If you want to compare it to, like, say, Star Trek's shields, and I'm sure that the system in Star Trek is, different. It's probably some sort of charge, system, electrical charge or magnetic charge system, but it's similar to that. Our technologies are moving into a very sci-fi realm.
rockets being fired at the same time, the Iron Dome failed to intercept them all.
Israel is known for having a pound-for-pound very effective military. They're known for having one of the best intelligence services in the world. I think that's still true, but you got to call a spade, and this was a massive, costly failure, and Israel knows that.
And while Hamas's overall strength doesn't come close to Israel's, the group has grown with time. The terrorist organization manufactures many of its rockets and kamikaze drones within the Gaza Strip, with financial backing from Iran. Israel believes Hamas has a total stock of 30,000 rockets. Other weapons and materials are believed to be smuggled in.
Another insight that some people may not have that I think is unique. You heard the term kamikaze in this broadcast, and how Hamas is using, kamikaze weapon systems to be able to be more effective. Well, that term was used in World War II. And in World War II was, the deployment of radiological weapons. And it was the kamikaze pilots and the suicidal tendencies of the military, to, try to inflict as much damage as possible, that led to the war planning and the concern, if there was a ground invasion on the main island of Japan, that there would be so many casualties that a weapon of mass destruction would have to be used. Now, historians, question about the actual effectiveness of that plan, that Japan may have been starting to fall, just before, the Hiroshima bomb, and that conventional means may have been able to push them over the edge. But that's a debate in the historian circles, right? But the point that I'm making with that whole serpent, and the fear, right, and how it tries to hold on to you, it uses terms that may give you a certain picture in your mind to try to steer you into not doing the right thing. All right. And this term kamikaze, right, is a term, I believe it translates into like a wind, like a fierceful wind or something. A fierce wind, I think is how it's translated. But these terms are hinting at what we are approaching. Very similar to that rhythm of the fib sequence as it's going around itself. It's not exact, but it has a similar structure, and the next cycle around its starting point, you know, and it's similar, but it's not exact. But there's a hint in that that word kamikaze is a rhythm. There's a rhythm there that is similar to the past. And the snake is trying to have us move into a direction that is of fear, right? And you know, try to push for some sort of ceasefire without completing the mission, without fully rooting out the terror, right? Rooting out Hamas. So it's just, when I heard that, that's another fib sequence. This seems to be a common theme that I'm seeing. I don't know why I keep on seeing this, but you know, maybe it's just from my, you know, studies in academia, you know, during the dissertation days. But you know, I just, you know, because of chaos theory, but you know, I just see this theme constantly arise.
Materials are believed to be smuggled in from Iran, Egypt, Libya, Lebanon, or North Korea by the sea and underground. Since rising to power in 2007,
let me replay that, and I got a comment.
Strength doesn't come close to Israel's. The group has grown with time. The terrorist organization manufactures many of its rockets and kamikaze drones within the Gaza Strip, with financial backing from Iran. Israel believes Hamas has a total stock of 30,000 rockets. Other weapons and materials are believed to be smuggled in from Iran, Egypt, Libya, Lebanon, or North Korea by the sea and underground. Since rising to power.
So they're getting munitions from North Korea. North Korea needs to sell stuff to be able to get some money, some hard currency, right? Because its people are suffering, right? And they have a problem with food production. So, you know, they have to sell stuff on the black market, and the buyers are the terrorists. Once again, a failed policy that happened in the Clinton administration, and you can even go back farther, a failed policy to not knocking out North Korea. See, not kicking the can down the road ended up causing a negative externality someplace else in the world that happens to be a hotbed of religious fervor that may actually lead to the rebooting of the Temple Mount. You know, it's just solving the problem before it metastasizes and causes other externalities that you can't even plan for is the best policy. That's why I kept on saying the last crisis that we just went through, shutting down the capability of weapon development in biologics. If you don't do that, another thing's going to be released. Another thing is going to be used on the battlefield. And it's going to get worse. The people that wanted to be deniers of pathogens, right, didn't want to do anything about that. They wanted to be just anti-whatever. Stupid. Just about everything I've been saying for the last 4 years is starting to come out. To start to show and evolve into a world conflict.
Since rising to power in 2007, Hamas has built a gigantic underground tunnel system.
They have a town underground that they are in control of, not the Israeli army. Hamas have the upper hand underground. Israel has the upper hand from the air, but boots on the ground means fighting.
Absolutely agree with that.
it's not going to be easy.
An underground network that causes a tactical headache for Israeli forces, complicating any targeted attack of the terrorist organization.
Well, still with me is Bilal Saab. And Bilal, it seems that the Israeli ground campaign for the moment is concentrating on Gaza City in the north of the enclave. We know it's a densely populated area. We know it's full of civilians. So this is going to be urban warfare, isn't it? It will be bloody. In fact, it already is. What's your sense as to how this battle will shape up now?
Not just urban warfare, it's also going to be a subterranean warfare because they have to deal with the tunnels. This is where Hamas is keeping more than 200 hostages. So there's going to be that component to that fight, which adds an incredible layer of complexity of objectives. But I've sensed over the past couple of days some kind of shift in tactics on the part of the IDF. I think we're now looking at a much more limited set of objectives as opposed to what was declared initially. Looking at something a little bit more surgical as opposed to a full-fledged ground invasion. And I think the logic there is compelling. Frankly, on the one hand, it reduces the risk to the IDF soldiers inside those tunnels. And then, of course, you could reduce collateral damage if you do more surgical strikes. And we can get into those in detail.
That is the surface reason. Mass consumption reason. Less casualties for the IDF. We're going to have We're going to have our limited invasion. Half war. Remember what I was saying about people are going to start using the term and the thought process of half war. Well, he just mentioned it. All right, he didn't use the term half war, but this is half war. All right, half war is on the surface they're telling the people that are listening, right, that it's going to reduce the casualties of the IDF and reduce the casualties for the civilian population. The problem is that it doesn't root out Hamas, doesn't root out Hezbollah, and it doesn't knock out Iran. So this is going to rear its head again, just like they were playing, the montage at the very beginning of this video. It's going to get worse. But the consumption story, the mass media consumption story is half war because we have to bring down the casualties for the IDF and for the civilian population in Gaza. The real story is the United States is running out of ammunition. The United States doesn't have the armaments for a sustained battle in the Middle East, let alone a potential three-front world conflict. That's the reason. And the United States presidential election is coming up in 2024 in November. This thing is going to be months, in terms of military operations, probably years in terms of trying to rebuild and support a better government for the Palestinians, right? But the operation, the military operation, is probably going to run until April, maybe a little bit before, maybe March, right? And that will give some time for it to abate, have this harmonic dissipation in the memory, and the Democratic Party can say, we helped with the ceasefire, even though it's failed liberal policy that gutted the American military. That's the real story, not this bullshit story that he said.
Strikes, and we can get into those in detail if you want.
And you mentioned the tunnels under Gaza. Is it possible, do you think, for Israel right now to sort of put those tunnels out of use? I'm thinking of the 2006 war that Israel fought with Hezbollah in Lebanon, where tunnels were used to great advantage by that militant group. Clearly, they're an asset to Hamas, so presumably that's a top priority for Israel now.
Out of use? No, that's unrealistic. We're talking about 300 miles of tunnels. This is not your average tunnel. This is a far more extensive one, Lebanon. The most you can do is, once again, try to massively degrade and damage that infrastructure to the point where it becomes a little bit more manageable, becomes a little bit draining for Hamas to operate from them, to fire rockets and missiles from them. But no, there's certainly no way, at least cost efficiently, to completely destroy that entire tunnel infrastructure. They've tried over the years to degrade it, them and the Egyptians, but they've realized that it's just so vast and it's multi-floor and it's tight and it's deep that there's just no way that you can completely take it out.
You've been talking a bit about Israel's objectives and
That is why you have to kill the individuals using the tunnels. There's 20,000 Hamas, according to this report, combatants, right? They have to, I'm telling you, they have to Dresden this. This is yeah, an all-out war. Or use the technologies that have been developed in unconventional means to be able to neutralize Hamas. But there's going to be a lot of casualties on the civilian side. We are marching slowly towards, and it may not be this event, but we are, if the Israelis do a half war and don't get the job done, the next one, they may have to pull the chute for biologics. All right. It is starting to, over time, there seems to be some evidence to suggest that different populations, because of their ethnicity, have different reactions, positive and negative, to the V. All right? And those differences can be used and manipulated. Just as there are differences in how certain ethnicities responded positively and negatively to the pathogen. When you understand the differences, you can manipulate. All right? And targeted warfare in biologics is emerging. It still has a lot of spillover effects, but over time, the use of those manipulations, we have precision medicine right now. It's expensive, but it's very doable, right? And it'll get better over time, but there's going to be precision biological, and it'll get better over time. Just like targeted munitions, targeted missiles were rudimentary in the 80s, the 90s. Fast forward to 2023, and they're much more accurate. All right. So another data point that suggests that my thesis is correct, that if you don't root out the problem in this region early on, there's going to be a negative externality far worse down the road.
Israel's objectives and strategy. I'm really interested that you think that potentially Israel's goal here is changing a little. But let's talk about the strategy of Hamas. So, Israel says...
I'm sorry that I keep on going back and forth. Crude oil inventories rose 773,000 barrels. So that would mean that oil should be trading lower. Now, this is interesting. I think that there's market manipulation out there in general, right? But there's definitely market manipulation in the oil market. I think what's happening is the U.S. is creating a deal with Saudi Arabia where they're basically, you keep on pumping get the barrels up. You may not have to announce that you're making more, production, doing higher production, but get the barrels up so it will lower the price of oil. So the cost to run the war will be less. There won't be as much inflationary pressure out there as the war is being executed in the Middle East, because Saudi Arabia is on the side of the United States and Israel right now, right? They're not friendly with Iran, and the way this is looking, it's going to be an Iran knockout. So I think that was kind of like some sort of deal that's going on. Delegates from Saudi Arabia actually have been talking to the administration just recently. I believe that they flew into, I thought I saw a news announcement where they flew into DC to talk to Biden's administration. So I think there is a manipulation that's going on in terms of barrel of oil production to suppress the price. Now we'll see in the market if that's happening. That news just came out. So, I don't know. Oil is trading earlier this morning, it was trading at around 82. It's still trading around 82. All right, so it is up by 2%, a little bit more than 2%. So I'm kind of surprised that the news announcement hasn't driven the oil price down more. But this thing was, as high as 95 that I saw. That 95 may have been slightly before the event that took place in Israel. But the oil might start moving down to the high 70s, maybe, or mid 70s, maybe 75, 70, 76, 77, somewhere in there. It may start to equalize. Again, our strategic reserves are really, really depleted for oil. And we're going to need that. And maybe there's some deal, in the works to try to bring it down even more. I believe that Trump bought it at $40 a barrel or something like that, and we used it all up. So now we're going to be going to the market and possibly paying $75 dollars a barrel. I mean, just the Biden administration is so fucking stupid. Just everything. I'm telling you, and when I was younger and I was in college, I should stop going bouncing back and forth. But you know what? I don't fucking care anymore. But the thing is that when I was in college, I was hardworking and dedicated to trying to grow a career and all that, and like most people that are trying to establish themselves. And I never bought into that liberal thing going on in college, right? But I wasn't like overly conservative either. I was just, I was more middle of the road, didn't care kind of person, right? But over time, especially when moving to New York and seeing the contrast of the Midwest mentality of just hard work and trying to, and trying to, just be an American, right? Right. Just that work ethic of the Midwest, right? Versus this ultra liberalism. Now, even Michigan is a blue state, but usually, I mean, it votes more Democrat because of the whole unions and the automotive industry and all that. But there are sectors that are red within the state. So I was Republican, and but not not neocon, right? Even though some people would classify me now in this realm as a neocon, but that's fine. I don't really fucking care. But at that time, Michigan was, there were pockets of red, but a lot of blue, and the state usually went blue. right? But I never really saw that ultra liberalism. But again, it's a different generation. It's Gen X, right? Now you fast forward, being in New York, and it's just there's so many liberals and there's so many ultra liberals, and the zeitgeist, right, has changed for generations and through the decades, right? So there's this zeitgeist, and I am just so repulsed by this ultra liberalism because I'm seeing that a lot of the problems that are happening in the world and in the United States is because of this ultra liberalism. And that's why I'm so negative towards the ultra liberals, right? Because they're causing a lot of externalities, right? So that's a tangent. All right, so let me continue on. I apologize. I'm going bouncing around like some sort of racquetball.
Hamas. Israel says Hamas uses human shields. That's one of the reasons they say why so many Palestinians have been killed so far. What do you make of that? Is there evidence that is Hamas's tactic here?
I want to be incredibly clear. Obviously, I'm sitting here in Washington, so I'm not going to give you accurate analysis or information about whether there's a deliberate and concrete strategy on the part of Hamas to actually use human shields. But it almost doesn't matter because you still end up with collateral damage. You still end up with loss of civilian life on the part of Palestinians in many ways because of the way Hamas fights. Whether to do it deliberately or by default, it doesn't matter.
Bilal Saab from the Middle East Institute in Washington, D.C. I want to thank you very much indeed, sir, for your time and for your analysis on the program.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
And thanks to you for watching Middle East Matters here on France.
So that is the analysis. I think you have, in summary, I think you have to realize that the casualties are starting to go up on the IDF side, a total of 12 that's reported. There's some rumor that there was actually a special force casualty too from the United States side. That's not being mentioned, but that's a rumor. This is going to get more bloody. And I'm concerned of half war because it's kicking the can down the road and it's not doing the right thing. And I'm telling you, this event is bigger than other events like in 2006 and 2008. And I think the other one was 2014. There's an alignment, spiritual alignment that took place last Rosh Hashanah through Simchas Torah. And there seems to be a divine judgment that has been casted on the world, right? And that we're all being tested. And depending on how we perform in that test depends on if we are going to be blessed or not. Now, that is a very lofty concept. Now, the nuts and bolts of that basically means this. If you side on the terrorist side, if you side for Hamas, and if you side on Islamic Jihad, you're on the wrong side. If you are anti-Israeli, anti-Jew, anti-Christian, then you're on the wrong side. If you are trying to support Israel, trying to support a move towards a more conservative society, where it's moving back to the precepts of the Bible and the Torah, you're on the good side. If you are a person that is trying to destroy the family unit, destroy children before birth, if you are trying to push gender fluidity, if you're trying to destroy democratic freedoms and free markets, right? Capitalistic markets, you're on the wrong side, right? If you're trying to destroy these things. the ultra liberal is going to be cursed on this. And the snake, like I said last night, the snake is going to start eating itself. The ultra liberals are going to start eating itself. They're going to start turning on each other. And their philosophical thought process is such that they try to justify that babies are getting killed in Gaza by missile strikes from Israel, and therefore there needs to be a ceasefire because they need to save the babies. But that same person is trying to have late-term abortions or even at-term abortions. And that is getting to the point where society is Sodom and Gomorrah. That is getting to a society where it's getting out of control. The sexualization of these children, even in commercials or in merchandise. During the Pride Month in New York, and and it's happening all over the country now. But a few years ago it was just New York. But it keep on moving that pressure point in society. How much drag queens in elementary schools and changing of genders at such a young age, and all these hormonal inhibitors that are being given to children for gender reassignment. The medical community is doing stuff that they shouldn't be doing. They make money on it, and there's I am very disenfranchised with the whole medical industry. There's a lot of problems, and I'll do a video in depth on why I absolutely hate the industry, and and I absolutely hate just the process. And I can't go into detail in this video because it's just too long to go into. But there are so many reasons why not to be a doctor. There are so many reasons why the medical establishment has been taken over by other agencies. And there are so many reasons why certain types of technologies like AI is going to radically change how you are treated. And the whole economic model for entrepreneurs that are in medicine, that are clinicians, is radically going to change. So it's just there's and then you have patients that don't want to be compliant, and and the over certification and the recertification and the constant studying. I've been told at such a young age, being a doctor is so important. It's such a high point in one's scholastic achievement. And the reality is that doctors are slaves. Doctors are slaves. They're high paid slaves, but they're slaves. And there's many things that are wrong with the industry. I absolutely hate freaking medicine. Absolutely hate it. And there's a military kind of aspect to it. And once you get to a certain age, such as myself, you don't want to be told how to live your life. You don't want to have schedules that are so discombobulated, where it's 8 to 5 on one day, and then the next day it's 2 in the morning to until 10 a.m. the next day. It just when you get older, you want some stability in your sleep cycle, and you want some stability in what the plan of the day is, right? And it's just and honestly, there's too many problems with insurance and the legality of it. It's just there are more negatives on being a doctor and the whole medical industry, then there are positives. Then you add in the components of, certain medical establishments were complicit in the crisis that we went through, and the hiding of data and the and that sort of thing. But just the medical industry just sucks, absolutely sucks. It's not worth it. It's absolutely not worth it. So that's my take on things. The liberals, the ultra liberals, are their solution to the problem is making the problem worse. So that's my take on it. Please subscribe to all my channels. I have 3 YouTube channels. The links are in the description of this video. I also have Rumble, Bitchute, and Brighteon. So click those links and make sure you subscribe to all 6 channels. Please help support my news coverage by donating, especially if you're a overseas watcher. I have a lot of foreign viewers, and they can't buy my products in my store. So a great way to support my work is to donate. So on my website, the-studio-reykjavik.com, you can donate on the homepage at the very bottom through Stripe or PayPal. You can also donate through Buy Me a Coffee. So that's a great way to support my news coverage. You can also subscribe as a paid subscriber on Patreon, and that will help to support my news coverage. Go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Link is in the description, and purchase some of the health products that I offer. I have been focused on an anti-aging protocol for a long, long time. And that over the decades, certain things have come onto the market that have been added to what I do every day to improve my health and boost up my immune system. And then on top of it, the ability to kind of know what's going on with my body and how supplementation has slowed down the aging process and healed certain things like arthritis when I was in triathlons. But also the knowledge that I gained through my medical studies. So, it just, take my advice. I am a person that has been doing this protocol for a long time and have improved it over the years as certain types of technology has come up, certain types of products that hit the market to improve it. Back in the 70s and the 80s, it was basically 70s was like vitamins, right? And a little bit of the antioxidants, and the antioxidant world really started taking off, and some sort of and certain types of powdered supplements were starting to hit the market in the 80s, right? And I started with strong antioxidants, taking a lot of that type of stuff in the 80s and carried that through. But things improved, and now we have supplements that are so much better than in the 70s and the 80s that are more targeted, and the learning of how to use them synergistically. Now, caveat is that people would go, well, you're not an MD, DrPaulCottrell. I keep on telling everybody, and I have a Ph.D. right in finance, and and everyone that watches me all the time, knows, that I've done medical studies and all this, and I've done research using HIV proteins. So I know, and I have a thesis on it. So I have I have a strong understanding of medicine. Not as strong as someone that has been practicing for 15, 20, 35 years or whatever, but just listen to me. I have this protocol works. All right. So You know, so people will go, well, I don't want to listen to you because you don't have an MD yet. You're just a Ph.D. in finance. And it's like, well, you don't understand the other education that I had. So, or have. So follow my protocol. All right. This protocol is neutralize pathogens, reduce inflammation, and bring down reactive oxygen species. And how do you do that? You get silver solution. All right. This structural nano silver, right? Health Max 35 is something I take every day with a teaspoon. All right. It's a liquid, and you just swish it in your mouth, neutralizes the pathogen. You gargle with it for about 20 seconds, right? And then you swallow it. So what's happening is it's neutralizing the pathogen and it's maintaining that mucosal barrier that you need. Like I mentioned before, strong antioxidants is another pillar of the anti-aging protocol. C60, I sell it in avocado and coconut oil. It is a very strong antioxidant. This will improve your mitochondrial health, boost up your ATP, and reduce the cellular stress due to oxidative species. Your oxygens can be charged and they cause damage to the cell. By taking this, it reduces that damage and you slow down aging. Because people that get older, they literally rust. They oxidize, all right? I mean, not to be so crass, but older people rust, right? So, they're breaking down, and that's because of these reactive oxygen species. To neutralize that, you take a compound like C60, a very strong antioxidant. And then the other two components to the protocol before you add other stuff is to bring down the inflammation. You control your blood glucose levels with ashwagandha. And by doing that, you're going to reduce that inflammatory response from the high sugar levels. And you're going to reduce inflammation by taking the turmerics. Those are the three pillars: reduce inflammation, neutralize pathogens, reduce reactive oxygen species. Then you add stuff to it, like probiotics, right? That will help with the gut biome and help with the metabolism, help the communication with the liver, and also to help better communication with the brain. There is a correlation between brain health and gut health. Silver, structural nano silver lozenges. I have sweet menthol and green apple. I also have two other flavors. They're not lozenges, they're drops. And this right here comes in a bag of 20. The drops come in a bag of 100. And the flavors for the drops are blueberry and honey lemon. Structural nano silver soaps. All right. This will help to neutralize pathogens, right? It's a great soap, high quality, right? And I have 5 different scents that you can take a look at on the store. Taking vitamin C is really important, especially for skin health. It is an antioxidant, but it's not as strong as C60. One molecule of vitamin C can only neutralize one species of oxygen. And once it neutralizes it, the chemical structure has changed. It doesn't reverse. Well, C60 can be recharged, and that's why it's so potent. So vitamin C, you still need vitamin C, especially for skin health. Clarity factor, a great neurostack that helps to reduce brain fog. It helps you to focus at work. It helps you to focus on your studies. And when you have those neurons firing, you're going to reduce the chances of dendritic recession. resveratrol. This is a very good antioxidant. It's not as strong as C60, but it also synergistic with C60. This, in addition, helps to get rid of senescent cells. This has been known for many decades to be a compound that helps slow down aging. D3. You need this to be able to absorb calcium. Our society, because we're not outdoors, we don't get enough D3, right? Especially during the winter months. We need D3, not just for calcium absorption, but also for gene expression. If you're low on D3, you're not getting the proper gene expression, and therefore the cellular processes are not working as well. They're subpar. In addition, it gets rid of cells that need to go into apoptosis. I wonder why D3 was so important during the last crisis. Because some of the mechanisms of the V prevented cells from going into apoptosis. Oh, I wonder why taking D3 was so important while taking the V. I wonder if Dr. Cooey could explain that one. Multivitamins. Now, multivitamins are important because you need these cofactors, right? You need these cofactors to help with the enzymatic activity. When the cofactors aren't there, the enzymes either are not working at all or they're working subpar. So get a really good multivitamin. This multivitamin will help you because it's easy on the digestive system. Go to my store and get this multivitamin, all right? And that you add that to the protocol and it'll slow down aging. Lignans, very important. This is a powder, same as the probiotic that I just showed you. That's also a powder. This helps with hormonal health for males and females. I will go in detail why that is in another video. And this will boost up your immune system. Take this. This will help with prostate health. This will help with uterine and ovarian health. And it'll help to mitigate the problems that women are seeing with hot flashes. All right. Some people think that this is only for men. It's not true. This is also for women. And also, it has been found to help with mitigating and reducing cancer. All right. So, I have a lot of really good products that if you follow in this protocol, right, you're going to boost up your immune system and you're not going to get as sick as often. And when you do boost up your immune system, you're not going to age as fast. Your body is healing and it's not always constantly inflamed, fighting something, fighting some chronic illness, right? And you'll slow down the aging process. It's important to drink, water, 64 ounces of water that's filtered. Make sure you don't drink fluorinated water. Right? Get this toothpaste. This is a structural nano silver toothpaste. It will whiten your teeth, freshen your breath, neutralize pathogens, reduce inflammation on the gum, reduce cardiovascular disease, reduce valvular disease. This is a very strong toothpaste. It's the best toothpaste that you'll be able to get. It's way better than Alex Jones's toothpaste. So you might as well support DrPaulCottrell and his antics, right? Right? By purchasing this toothpaste instead of supporting Alex Jones. Alex Jones has a lot of supplements and, and it helps support the InfoWars, right? But he doesn't look like he's taking them. Does he really live what he's telling you compared to what I'm saying? Everything that I have shown you, I use. you know, and it's obvious, you know. You compare like age with Dave Hodges. I mean, that guy is totally unhealthy, right? And anyone just looking at him, you can tell that he's unhealthy. The same thing with Alex Jones, but they're telling you to purchase their products, their health products. They don't even live what they're telling you to do. And this is a common theme on YouTube. You have people that are telling you to live a certain way to help support their channel, but they don't even live that way because you're just a commodity. You're just a way to monetize their channel in some shape or form, either through advertisement or through purchasing of products or donations, right? But they're not really living what they're saying. It's obvious just by the way I'm aging, right? I'm older than Alex Jones, right? The way I'm aging, it's obvious that I am doing what I am saying, about this anti-aging protocol. And the reason, I told you the reason. I mean, I saw a lot of cardiac deaths when I was young because of the heart disease that runs in my family. So I mean, I've been hyper vigilant on that. Another great product to get is structural nano silver gel. This will neutralize pathogens. You put it on your hands, around your mouth, around your nose, lightly coat your nostrils, around your ears, around your eyes, lightly coat, right? Stays active for about 5 hours. It's a great way to reduce your chances of getting sick, right? But it is a great skincare product. If you get a cut and you put the gel on, because it's neutralizing pathogens and keeping the wound clean, right? And it has that protective barrier because it's a gel. What's going to happen is that it's going to actually heal that cut about 30% quicker. Now, it'll help with abrasions, cuts, and also minor burns. It'll speed up that process. Help with acne. And if you put this on your body every day, leave it on your body at night, when you wake up, you'll notice that your skin is clearer and that around your face it's tighter. It'll tighten the skin, right? And when you couple that and take the vitamin C and drink the 64 ounces of filtered water, no fluoride, all right? 64 ounces of water, and you take the C60, the vitamin C, and put this on your face and on your body for night application, and take the collagen, you're going to start noticing that your skin is improving and it's getting healthier. And the reason why is that the vitamin C, the water, and the collagen are going to cross-link, right? And that will happen is that the extracellular matrix is going to improve. When we get older, that extracellular matrix starts to decline. And so the skin isn't as spongy. So by drinking the water, it kind of hydrates the skin and helps with this cross-linking with the vitamin C and the collagen. When you also add in the C60, very strong antioxidant, and the resveratrol that I was talking about, what will happen is you're improving the basal layer that's actually creating the new cells for your skin, because your skin will flake off, and the very superficial layer of your skin is keratinized. The lower levels are less keratinized, to the point where there's extremely low percentage of keratin in it. And the basal layer, which has the adult stem cells, they will help to populate. But that as you age, that gets kind of, some of these cells go into senesced, right? And you got to get rid of those senesced cells, and you have to improve the oxidative stress because of being outside and the chemicals around us and just aging. So taking the C60 and the resveratrol together is going to improve the basal layer. So when you do that, you follow that skin protocol, you're going to notice that your skin is improving compared to your peers that don't do it. So those are a lot of the products that I have. I got many more on the store to take a look at. I also have partnered up with Rainbow Herbals, and this product is a citrus scent, right? It's a deodorant. This is made from the Himalayas, essential oils, right? very high quality, very potent. This bar will act as a detox and a deodorant, so it's a dual purpose, and it's very high quality. It'll last quite a long time, but it's an extremely high quality product. So to help Rainbow Herbals out, please purchase this bar from my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. I have it in citrus, I have it in peppermint and tea tree. We have also created a bar. It's called the Even Better Bar, right? So the Even Better Bar is also made from essential oils from the Himalayas, extremely high quality. And that bar it has dual purpose, right? You can rub it on your muscle and you'll actually reduce the muscle pain. So if you're working out and you have muscle pain, it'll reduce that pain, if not eliminate it. Or if you pull the muscle, same thing, it'll eliminate it. If you have a cut and you rub the bar on the cut, it will also heal the cut faster because of the essential oils help with the healing process. All right. If you have a burn, same thing. You apply the bar on the burn. Eczema, it'll help with the eczema and itching, right? If you have a bug bite, to reduce the itching of the bug bite, and they help heal the actual bug bite wound quicker, use the Even Better Bar. So it's a bar that is multiple purpose. It's because of the types of essential oils that are in the bar that allows it to have this healing property. In addition, if you put that bar on your skin daily, right, you'll notice that your skin is getting softer and it's healthier. So it's another, if you want to use it as a skincare product, you can. So I have given you a ton of things based on my, personal experience and based on just my studies in medicine to allow for you to learn on how to improve your health without going down the path being locked into statins and beta blockers and diabetes medication, right? You want to solve the problem early by being proactive and do preventative maintenance. You will just have a better life than to be on all these drugs that cause so many side effects, right? You don't want to be on metformin, because you have diabetes. Why not? A lot of people are diabetic type 2, and that can be reversed. Some people are diabetic type 1, which in most cases is not reversible. So, but for many people, it's the change of lifestyle. It's proper diet, proper exercise, proper supplementation, proper sleep, right? And if you follow that, then you're going to do way better when you get older. Same thing that we were covering here. Solve the problem early before it gets worse down the road, right? So, this knowledge that I gained through personal experience and through scholastic achievement that allowed me to have this kind of insight, right? So, people will be out there and they'll go, well, you're just not an MD. I have a Ph.D. I've been DrPaulCottrell well before the last crisis, right? And I'll be DrPaulCottrell for the rest of my life, right? But, for the ones that have been watching my channel and they're new, relatively new, again, I received a Ph.D. in finance, right? In algorithmic trading and dealing with chaos theory. And because of what happened to my brother, I decided to pursue medicine. So I did pre-med at Fordham. I did a master's degree at Harvard University through HES. My master's thesis was on using the HIV tap protein as a therapy for GBS, which is an autoimmune disease, right? It was done on an animal model, and had positive results on that. GBS is a peripheral nervous system disease where it is attacking, antibodies are attacking the peripheral nervous system. And so by taking TAT, you can bring down that attack and allow for the peripheral nervous system to actually heal. TAT can also be used to help treat MS. So so I have this insight from my studies at Harvard, and then I've completed 2 years of medical school. So it's going through all of the the core concepts of medicine. So I have and have done clinical work, in clinical training. I am in a space where I am not happy with medicine. I think that when you're older, like I am, you want to enjoy your life, and it's not an enjoyable process to go through more years of clinical training only to be told how to practice medicine. When you get older, you want to be your own boss. Right? When you're older, you want to have stability in your time schedule. You want to have more time to enjoy the years that you have left. I'm 51, right? And I've already put in 7 years in medical training. The clock starts, with pre-med, right? And, doing the master's thesis and then, halfway through medical school. And I just, that's already taken 7 years. And it's constant testing and constant recertification and constantly worrying about, will someone sue you, or will there, the constant worry about, administrative rules and regulations and stuff. It's not a fun thing, especially when you've been successful in other careers. And I am disenchanted with the medical field. Absolutely. And, I'm 51 and I want to enjoy my life, and there's many more years of training, to be able to practice. It's not worth it. It really isn't. I mean, when you look at the net present value of this whole thing, if you look at the cost benefit analysis in terms of the amount of time I have left that are quality years, it's not worth being an MD. What is worth is enjoying your life and taking the knowledge that I have obtained through the many years of education, and moving forward and just enjoying my life. My father's 80 and he has ischemic dementia. He's in a nursing home. That's less than 30 years away. That's less than 30 years. The difference in time is 30 years. 30 years is nothing. And all 30 years aren't the same quality of years. The best quality years that I have remaining are the next 10. And is it worth spending 7 years more or 6 years more of clinical training to sacrifice to be a slave to a system? And the most logical answer to that is no. And it's just, you sit back and it's like, it's not worth the sacrifice. It's not worth the personal sacrifice, the time sacrifice. You're not enjoying, the holidays because you're scheduled to do something, or you're studying something for another test. When you get older, it's very hard to sit for a 7-hour test. The preparatory requirements to be able to get to the point where you're ready for a 7-hour test is extreme. So you're balancing all these things. And when you get older, you just don't want to deal with it anymore. And I think I'm at that age where what I've noticed is that once I hit 50, there was like this, before, obviously before I turned 50, I was doing all this activity to get into medical school and all this, and I had a lot of energy, and a lot of fortitude, right? And, was willing to jump through all these hoops. But once you hit 50, and I think many people that are older would realize this, that are, 50 or older, you just, you get to a point where you just want to enjoy your life and you're just tired of being told what to do. And, I'm to the point where I just want to enjoy the few years left that I have that are quality years. And it's not worth treating people and sacrificing in doing all that training to sacrifice the next really important 10 years of my life. Because there's going to be a decline, right? And there's, even though I'm doing all these antioxidants and, anti-aging, I'm far better than my peer group. But there's going to be some decade down the road that is, the decline of DrPaulCottrell, right? So, I just absolutely, I'm at a point in my life where I hate medicine. I hate medicine, and it's not worth it. It's not worth it financially. It's not worth it on a personal level. And I've learned a lot, and maybe I'll take that knowledge and apply it to something else. I don't know. But I really don't want to be an MD anymore. And I really don't fucking care. And I'm at a point in my life where, I can enjoy my life. I need to use that enjoyment the best that I can. Because I'll tell you, when you see two parents going into a nursing home at roughly the same time because of a complex situation that took place with my father and my mother, because my father was the caregiver of my mother, and the caregiver ends up getting ischemic dementia, everything started falling apart. And then my mother died in the nursing home during Omicron wave, and just seeing the decline of my mother while in medical school was like a shock. So when you see a patient that, when you're training, right, as a doctor, you're seeing lots of different types of patients. Some of them are very benign. Some of them are near end of life situations. And it kind of reminds you of like, oh my God, this is exactly what happened to my mother. Or this reminds me of my mother. This reminds me of my father. This reminds me of my brother. And I'll tell you, just when you're there, you don't want that constant reminder. It's sometimes better to be naive, right? Instead of having the wisdom of, seeing this, at a personal level. And the constant reminder, it's not worth it. It's totally not worth it. Now, if you're younger, right, in your late 20s or early 30s, then there's enough years to absorb the stress and absorb that. But when you're older, you get to a point where you don't want to hear some 30-year-old telling you how to do your job, right? You don't want to hear some 30-year-old, right, being the gatekeeper of your residency position, right? Meanwhile, as being an older person, you've made more money than they have ever made. So I just like, you just look at this and it's like, I just want to enjoy the last 10 years, good 10 years. The next, 10 years are going to be really important. And, and I know, through just wisdom that my body will start to age and I'm not going to be as a vibrant person. So these next 10 years are really important. Is it worth sacrificing 60% of those 10 years for additional clinical training? It's not. It's truly not. And that is the most wise thing I can say is the realization of my own mortality and the importance of trying to enjoy your life, and also being able to at least try to explain to people on how they can improve their life based on my real world experience and based on my educational experience. It's very unique and you wouldn't see it in most people. And the things that I'm saying right now are extremely profound. Right now, what I'm talking about is extremely profound and very human and very real, right? And you know, I just don't like medicine anymore. And I don't need medicine anymore. You know, I never really needed it. I just, you know, I thought I wanted to help people, but you know, the reality of the situation is that that industry is so corrupt and so taken over by regulatory bodies. It is crazy. It's actually crazy. It's nothing like it used to be in the 80s or the 70s or even 2000. And I think that the model, the medical model, is moving more to the NIH with slash this AI kind of component to it that's controlled by the insurance companies. That's my take on it. So there are haters out there that'll go, don't listen to Dr. Paul Cottrell, he's not an MD. You know, he's calling himself a doctor. I was Dr. Paul Cottrell in 2015, way before the previous crisis. And you know, my interest at that time was in finance and in modeling different markets. And I think you can see that I apply kind of a mathematical thought process and seeing even events like this. So the chaos theory in my dissertation, I'm applying just through verbiage and explaining the world events. Right. So there's a benefit of having, you know, being a polymath, you know, and in many different fields, right? And they have a strong knowledge base in many different things. And one of them is in medicine. So you know, those haters out there, I have a PhD in finance. I went to Fordham for my pre-med. I went to Harvard University through HES and did very well there actually. And you know, did, you know, my master's thesis on the HIV TAP protein and using that purified protein as a therapy for GBS. And you know, completed 2 years of medical school. And you know, I'm at a point in my life where I really don't want to be an MD anymore. I want to enjoy the little life that I have left, especially when you see the world going up in flames. We don't know if we do not know in the next 3 months if the world is actually going to have a nuclear detonation. You know, and it's low probability, but I live in a highly populated city. One of the key targets of a continental ballistic nuclear warhead is New York. You know, so I'm on, I don't know if I wake up tomorrow because because New York's nuked. We don't know, but it's low probability. The bigger issue here is that those quality of years, I see it in my father. He's a shell of himself because of the ischemic dementia. And you don't know what he's thinking, but he doesn't seem to be responding because of the dementia. And, we did as children the best that we could for his care. And I wish we could do better, but, we couldn't. And just seeing that and seeing him slowly drift away and he has good care, but, his room is small, his activities are somewhat minimal. His cognitive function's minimal, and that's only 30 years away. And the chances of me being in that situation is lower probability, but it could happen. It could happen tomorrow. We just don't know. So is it really worth spending additional 6 years of training and testing and sitting at a table and studying and not enjoying the outdoors and not enjoying the holidays and enjoying life and dealing with 30-year-olds telling you how to being your boss? I mean, it's just And you make, and you look at them and it's like, dude, you have zero experience, in life, zero, because their whole life has been studying for medicine, right? So, many students are like that, not all, but many, right? Most of them, and I have not met one doctor, not one, that actually liked medicine. Once they started practicing, I have not met one person that actually liked practicing medicine, nor have I met a resident that likes the residency process, and it's enjoying the residency. It takes too much out of you. And there's just, the bar just keeps on getting harder and harder. And they're just pushing more and more stress on the individual. And I'm at an age where I don't need to put up with it. I don't need to put up with it financially. And I don't need to put up with it, in terms of just emotionally. And there's that remembrance of the mother and the father, right? And it just like, it kills me when I see a patient. It literally hurts me when I see a patient that is very similar to my mother, or see a patient that's similar to my father, or they're just right at the edge where they're moving towards that. Dealing with end of life situations sucks. It sucks. It sucks when you're dealing with on a personal level with a parent, or a child, or a loved one. And it sucks seeing it repeated as a physician. And it's just, ignorance sometimes is bliss, so that's my take on it. It's just, I hate medicine now. I don't like the studying, and I want to enjoy my life. But you'll have the haters out there. They'll go, don't listen to DrPaulCottrell. He's not an MD. But I'll tell you, everyone that I have talked to that actually followed my protocol is healing. It's healing. They're healing. They're slowing down the aging. Let me give you an example. All right. Let me give you an example. There are people that have autoimmune disorders like Hashimoto's, right? You have antibodies that are attacking the thyroid. And by killing the thyroid, what happens is that you'll have a reduction in T3, T4. So your thyroid hormone. The reduction. It's destroying the hormone. But there's certain times where it can get unstable, because what happens is it is destroying follicles that hold the hormone, the thyroid hormone, the colloidal follicles, right? They'll destroy it, and it'll release a whole bunch. So it may spike. It may spike in hormonal release, each T3, T4, right, would spike, and then it'll drop back down, because the cells that are actually producing the T3, T4 are dying off. So long term, it's a diminishing of T3, T4. Short term, when the colloidal follicle blows up, there's a spike in the T3, T4, right? So, but to reduce the further damage of the thyroid, you need to bring down and calm down that autoimmune disorder. And what you do by doing that is taking the C60 and the turmerics. And by doing that, you're going to bring down that inflammatory response, that pro-inflammatory response. I know of a case that it's working. Additionally, there are people that have autoimmune disorder with pancreas. Same thing. You have an antibody that's attacking the pancreas, and you can slow down that attack by mitigating that inflammatory response and bringing down the titer levels. And we saw this during my research with the TAP protein. You can bring down titer levels, right? You can bring down titer levels by using TAP. And this is the reason why I said, follow my protocol. I had a protocol that I told everybody about when they were taking the V, to bring down the titer level, to lower the chances of an autoimmune response. And not many people said that, right? And especially the ones that are practicing medicine didn't say that. So take my advice. I have a unique perspective. I am a polymath. I know that sounds condescending. I don't really fucking care. I'm in a state in my life where I don't fucking care, right? And you know, I want people to realize that there is a certain knowledge base that I have, that if they listen to me and they follow my advice, they're going to do way better, right? Especially on the health side of it. It's about preventative medicine. Don't get stuck into this constant treadmill of the pharmaceuticals. There are too many side effects, right? There's certain things that you have to, take, especially, to get your body stabilized. But the idea is, all right, if you have to take the pharmaceuticals, is there a way to be able to get you slowly off of them and get back to homeostasis? Sometimes it's not, sometimes you can. A classic example is diabetes. Someone that's not taking care of their body, and then all of a sudden they become type 2 diabetic. They have to go on the diabetic medication. But if you follow the protocol, if you follow proper diet and exercise and proper supplementation and sleep and whatnot, then you don't need, slowly get you back to a point where you don't need to take the diabetic medication. So there's a lot to learn from me. So the haters out there, they'll continue to hate, right? Because they don't like what I have to say, right? Because I have a unique perspective on the pathogen and the V and what is causing all these other post-era pathologies, right? They don't want to hear it because they have a certain mindset. But I've been DrPaulCottrell since 2015, and I will die as DrPaulCottrell. All right. Yeah. And if you don't like it, tough, right? But there's a polymath aspect to my thinking, and it's very self-evident when I dissect these videos, right? So just take my advice. You'll make some money in the market, you'll improve your health, and may learn something, something else that I may cover, right? But I am very disenfranchised by medicine and by the industry, the medical industry. And it hurts me to see where my father is at. And it's less than 30 years away. Do I end up like that at age 70? Do I end up like that at age 80? Do I end up like that at age 90 or 100? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. We don't know. Right? And, these next years are really important to enjoy. Plus, all the crazy stuff that's going on in the world. We may see World War III. Was it really that important to spend hundreds of hours and thousands of questions in a test bank to prepare for another board exam? Well, I could have spent time enjoying life. Right? Now, if you're a 20-year-old or early 30-year-old, then you don't know much, so you'll do it. But when you're older and you have real world experience, you traveled the world and have seen a lot of life, right? You start to realize that that's a bullshit life. And being a slave to the medical system. Doctors are slaves. Mark my words. Doctors are slaves. They're high-paid slaves, but they're slaves. And there are other means to be able to enjoy your life, right? So that's my take on it. I hate medicine. Absolutely hate it. So thank you for listening, and please support DrPaulCottrell by making sure that you subscribe to all of my channels, all 3 YouTube channels, the Rumble, Bitchute, and Brighteon, and please go to the store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the products that I offer, and listen to the protocol that I'm telling you about. It'll slow down aging, it'll improve your health, it'll boost up your immune system, increase ATP, and you add stuff to the protocol, like the B complex, the probiotics, the good night formula, the collagen, and you're going to start seeing huge benefits to your health. Pay now or pay a whole lot later. Just like this. Get the job done now, or it's going to get a lot more costly later. Thank you for listening, and have a nice day.